Hey everyone, Dave Putz here from JKP Holdings. Alongside me, as always, Mr. Nathan Turner. Good afternoon. How are you?
Doing very well, thanks. How about you?
Good, man. Things have been rocking and rolling. I think we've been progressing along the way. This January is kind of coming down. We're starting to get some snow. We're expecting about 6 inches here in Jersey.
You guys, we're not actually going to get any of that. We had maybe an inch or two last night. Okay. So instead of shaving this morning, I went out to the hill.
Nice. I still got the beard going. For all who's listening, help me out. Let's root for the Niners to lose. If the Niners lose, they get to shave. So help me out there a little bit, football gods. So I've had an interesting week. As those who didn't know, we actually just listed about a little over 50 seconds on our available asset list. So if you don't have access to that, let us know and we'll get you on there. But we're sharing off camera something I did not, maybe just didn't realize or just didn't run into. Something with assignments and launches actually not needing to match. It was really interesting because I always had the assumption that assignments had to always match the launch chain. And it's just something I never run into. And as we go through the business, you learn things like this. It was weird because I always thought that if A and B and assignment change is there, that the lines had to be A to B as well. And what we're finding out, and they were saying because of MERS skipping a lot, it wasn't required. It was interesting.
Oh, that is interesting. It's nothing I've come across before, but it's good to know. You know that it happens where you're missing I've actually gone digging for missing a lunges because I assumed, I guess I thought that I had to have everything in order.
Yeah. So I know that things are rock and roll for you. You're going to be attending Node Expo this year, which will be coming up. Inside our portal, we have all the different upcoming Node investing conferences coming up. So if you're interested in seeing what's available coming up, take a look at our portal and you'll see everything there, along with all our resources, everything else. And if you miss any of this, remember you can go back to Facebook or YouTube, whatever, or a podcast. So for me, what we've been looking at is still assets are coming through. We're still seeing a ton of new assets come through, and we're tracking it like you do, is seeing what's new, what's something that's recurred. Have you been seeing a lot of new or repeat assets from your end?
Some of both, but for sure, I've seen some new stuff come up, and that's always good. I'm actually going to be putting in some bids here, hopefully today. We'll see how much work I can get done. If not today, then early next week. So looking forward to just getting some new stuff. It's always fun to buy some new notes and new challenges, new experiences.
New sellers.
It's always different. New sellers for you?
Yeah, we've come across a couple of people that just either in the space or in some kind of space arena, maybe the commercial. We bought a couple of commercial notes.
Yeah, I had a new seller. You and I worked on some numbers on this where they're asking for over UPB. And I'm thinking, how on earth is that worth it? And so we went through and looked at it. It's not.
No, at the end of the day, yeah. So for those who are wondering, like it was a 10% interest rate, right? And the seller wanted 101, 102%. And we're trying to figure out what the angle there is. We tried to run some numbers, not based on yield, but based on IRR, and it didn't work out. It was very odd.
It's not terrible, but it's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
So maybe for somebody else.
So we're selling a couple assets right now. Are you selling assets right now? Or are you kind of holding steady?
I'm hanging on. I've got some performers. I'm actually adding. I just worked out a modification yesterday, adding some more performers, and everything that I've got performing, I'm actually selling to myself, to my fund. So that's. Cool. I think that doesn't count as self-dealing. I think. But no, I can just I can sell it back into my own fund and have some immediate income. So that's fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we've come across, by doing what we're doing now, we've come across a lot of newer investors selling assets, but also buying them.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our struggles, the connection between us, everyone talks about connecting Main Street to Wall Street, but a lot of times being you've come across as with even newer investors is the disconnect between what we know and what they know, and we think we're covering everything and we skip over things, unfortunately.
Yeah,
we don't know and a lot of the times it's not on purpose. It's not something we try doing. We try being wide open.
Yeah,
we just don't realize.
Yeah, or I Oh yeah, you got to do that too. I guess I need to say that out loud because it's become an automatic thing. And so to stop and think and to break it down, sometimes I forget that. Yeah, I do that all the time, but it's so automatic that I don't actually consider it a step.
Yeah. Or we don't explain it enough, right? Saying to your servicer, and I'm like, well, that's easy. Like you just send your servicer, and maybe that step is something we don't realize.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So with that said, make that nice transition.
Yeah.
We welcome on the program, Smitty. Welcome, Smitty. I appreciate you joining us on this Friday, cold afternoon where we're at. I'm sure it's a little chilly where you're at as well. Welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's 19 degrees here. I mean, it's sunny outside, and I'm looking outside thinking I was going to go out, but no. Anything under 35 degrees, I try to stay on the inside.
I finally went to the hill this morning because it was warm enough. It's only 5 degrees Fahrenheit. To me, that's warm enough. It's been really cold, -5, -10 Fahrenheit. Like it's been cold enough that it keeps me inside instead of outside. But anyway.
So Smitty, I hate to say you're a new investor because you're not, right? You have experience, but you've just transitioned to notes a couple of years ago. So you get some of the things that we're talking about of, for those new investors out there, the connection from buying, getting into notes, hearing all the hoopla, all the hype about stuff, and actually going through the process is scary. Yeah. The first one is nerve-wracking.
When we're talking about no escrow and oh yeah, you just send your money and eventually you get the paperwork and all those kind of things. Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary. It wasn't so much scary when I bought my first note because I partnered with my mentor.
Okay.
When I first started out, I started with Desi in his ACI group. So we're a great guy. We did our first partnership, so I felt comfortable. Versus, I know some people that are ready to buy notes and they're just ready to do it without having someone there.
Yeah.
So one of my first suggestions is always to have someone to partner with, to step you through that first note, because it's a lot of stuff to know when you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, 10 years ago, there wasn't really anybody, but at the same time, pricing was such that you could make all kinds of mistakes and you'd still be okay. These days, not so much.
Yeah.
Back then, we buy things at 40 cents, 35 cents. Today, we're at 65 plus. So yeah, you can be half wrong on the value. It doesn't really matter. So, Smitty, let's back up a little bit, right? I know you're an ex-Wall Street stockbroker, billionaire, and you walk in this with a financial mind, and you just slid into it, right? What's your background?
So one of the things that I said not to say that I was a billionaire, but you let the cat out of the bag. I actually have a background in the telecommunications industry. I started that in the early 90s. Started out putting car phones in the car.
Nice.
Motorola's and things like that. So still actually am doing that, in my W-2 space. So I do still have a full-time job working in the cell phone industry. But I've also started my investing career back in, don't even want to say it, but I started in 2007. Okay. That's when I started. So lo and behold, is when I first bought my first property. That's where, it kind of.
No money down, let's go.
Yeah. So, and you always say, if I had known what I know now then, I probably would have been like super rich. But when I got into it, that failure, I'm like, man, I want to do this. I'm upside down in this house and, I just got rid of it and I kind of gave up. I started back in 2016 and bought a couple of rental properties. And what kind of led me to notes is that I didn't want to be the landlord person.
Yep.
So me and the missus, we've got some properties. We still have property. But, she's sending me out to fix a toilet, talk with the getting contractors, all other stuff, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we went to our local Mari meetup, and Don Rickenbaugh was there.
Okay.
And that was in 2019, I think.
Okay.
December, or I'm sorry, June, about June of 2019. And she was talking notes, and I was clueless. I had no idea what she was talking about. She's talking about carrybacks and, you know, all this stuff. And, you know, they were talking about partials, and I had no idea. But the thing that intrigued me, she was like, you can collect money like a bank, you know.
Those big buildings.
Yeah. And that one thing stuck in my head. So after that, man, I was YouTube scouring about, you know, notes and all this other stuff. And that's when I ran upon Desi, joined his group. And that was December of 2019. And I turned around and bought my note 2 months later, February.
What kind of note was it? First, second, performing, non-performing?
It was a first CFD. And yep, first performance CFD. And that was my first one. And it's funny because, you know, things were so rushed because at the same time I was buying the notes, I was attending my first note expo that was out in California.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, do you have the money? And I'm funding it through my Quest IRA. And so once we were all ready to do it, he was like, well, I need you to send the money. He's like, I can't. I need to call Quest and do it. He said, well, I thought you had checkbook control. I'm like, what is that? And so I'm scrambling, and, you know, finally we got the whole deal done and everything. But it's just like, I kind of just jumped in, right? Yeah. Even though he was there, but the terms and the things they were saying, you know, it was kind of like, I just still jumped in anyway, but I still had him there to kind of hold me. That makes sense. You know, so, and then started from there.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that somebody that can tell you the steps and how it works and all those kinds of things. And you were saying that you bought another one through Desi that they used to be one of mine.
Yes.
Yeah. So I bought another one through him. I actually partnered with somebody on that one, and we bought one of those and going through that process right now.
That's funny. It's a small world.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So when you first got started, what were some of the things that maybe it seemed easy to anyone talking about the business, but when you're going through it was extremely difficult or you felt lost?
Hey, pretty much everything, because, you know, when you get into it, you know, it's you hear surface conversations about a certain thing. They're like, so you need to review the collateral file. So, okay, yeah, I know I need to review the collateral file. But what are the things that you need to be looking for in the collateral file, which is not generally kind of detailed in every step of what you need to do. You need to be looking for assignments. You need to be looking for allonges. Is it a contract for deed? When did the contract for deed originate? Determine if it's going to be a, you know, if it's non-paying, if it's going to be a forfeiture or foreclosure.
Sure.
You know, those are the things that I had no idea when I bought the note. It's like I bought the note and then I start learning later. And
yeah, there's a lot of stuff when we go through it. It's like, you know, does the P&I match what's on the tape? Right? Exactly. Does the maturity date match? If it doesn't, was it mistaken? Was there mod?
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. So due diligence wise, was there any struggles you had with the due diligence process besides collateral file? Setting up your servicer, arranging for BPOs, trusting value outside your market, those kind of things. Did you struggle with any of those, or even connect with an attorney to review the collateral file if you chose to?
Yeah, so not really those areas I didn't struggle with on my first one. Like I said, with Desi, he really helped me. But on my second one, because I did it on my own, just trying to figure out who to, you know, to get into the network of people to know where to go. That was one of the biggest things. So struggling with trying to find the right person or talking to someone and, getting the referrals and actually kind of getting in the network for people to assist you. That was kind of one of the things too.
Yeah. When did you buy your second one? When was that?
The second one probably came a couple of months later. I think I bought that one from Equity. First Funding, I think.
Okay.
I can't remember the guy's name.
So early 2020?
Yeah, it was probably a couple of months after I bought the first one.
Okay. Was that CFD as well, or?
That one was a CFD as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's tough timing, because right as you need that network is right when everything shut down. And that networking part of it came really
it's crazy because, and I forgot to mention that when we were at the Note Expo, that's when everything in 2020 was really kicking off in California. So people, I can remember running around trying to find masks because they were like, you need to start wearing a mask, and no masks were around, and everybody's buying up hand sanitizers and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a crazy time.
Yeah, and that made it really tough, especially just the timing of it was not great as far as the networking goes. And then it's really hard to, we do our best to try to help people network from afar, but man, it's really not the same thing without those contacts.
Shaking hands, sitting down dinner.
I knew I wanted to get into it. I will reach out to people. Hey, I'm Smitty, I'm new, I need your help. Or, I don't have a problem of reaching out to people and telling them who I am and, what I do, because I want to get involved and I want to know and to get in the space. So just like,
that's exactly what you need to do, because if it's not done for you, then make it happen.
Right.
And you find the space may be difficult to get in. Once you're in, the circle's small. You kind of, everybody knows each other, right?
Yeah.
So when you're going through the process of bidding on assets, how did that shift from what you first did to pick up that first asset and make an offer to now? How have you adjusted how you made offers comfortable? Some people are like, I made my first offer and I'm shivering. And the way you come up with your bid amount, has that changed over time?
Yeah, and it's changing still because I'm learning more. From the first time I bid it on my second note, I realized that I kind of overbid it. Now that I go back and look at it, and it's fine, because I was learning. Yeah. So now what I'm trying to do is really hone in and do more research, do more calculations, and not just buy a note just to buy a note, to really calculate what my yield's going to be, calculate what my ROI is going to be, go through that file to make sure that, looking at the history to make sure I'm doing the right thing, right bidding, giving the collateral files to an attorney to having to look through to make sure everything is good, that, so when I do buy it, I'm not spending any extra money for whatever reason.
Sure.
So that's one of the things. And I'm still working on that, trying to be a better bidder on my assets to make sure. And then also to make sure, and we all don't know, because notes can go from performing to not performing, but to really focus in on and do more research on the borrower, to look at the history.
Sure.
Because my first notes I bought, I'm not really looking. I just want to buy some notes. But now I'm more strategic in my purchase, depending on what my exit strategies are.
And I think you kind of mentioned it there, but your exit strategy can change over time.
Yeah.
And you think, well, at the beginning, maybe I want this. And then as you go, you say, actually, I like this better. And this is better for me because of whatever, these different reasons. And it can shift.
It's interesting you say that, because a lot of people in our weekly investment community, they're building their own calculator. And I stress the importance of building your own, because you need to know, because you're going to have to change over time. I'm still adapting mine, right? Pricing chart changes, your statute of limitation changes, your licensing changes. Things change over time, and calculations made just based on what your exit strategy is. Like, okay, I want to gear more towards this. So I adjust this. Unless you know how your calculator works, you can't function, right? If you gave me yours and I bid off of it, I wouldn't work, because if I have to adjust something, I don't know how to. So we stress people, build your own. I get the fact that you may not know. What are some of the things in your calculations that you didn't have in the beginning that you have now that people who may be starting out really need to have in there?
One of the things is doing calculations on, just like when I first bought my first notes, I didn't think about foreclosing costs, servicing fees, potential liens, stuff like that. I just bought the note, to be honest, just bought the note. But now, as I've, grown, and like I said, I've got Desi, I'm in Jasmine's group with NAP, so she really honed in on as far as calculating all of that information to add into when purchasing an asset and what to look for. So those are some of the things that I've developed over time with the help of, some of these great people in this space.
It's interesting to say that, because, what we realized recently, and we were calculating a little differently than we did 6 months ago, is that different states have different amounts that go towards your legal balance, right? Some states allow your attorney fees, some states don't. Right. So, another wrinkle in that calculation that says, listen, here's my attorney fees. And remember, everyone, there's attorney fees and there are legal costs of foreclosure, right? The Fannie Mae schedule is one number, your court, auction, and your, publication fees is another number. They're two different brackets. In some states, you can put them both in and add to your legal balance. And legal balance is what you can collect at the auction. Some states, you can't use your attorney fees. So you have to make sure you separate them and add them when needed. So
and that's something that, going through the processes that I've gone through this year, even though we're short into the year, that I've found out what you can and can't charge to the ones that I'm going through.
Yeah, even I made a fairly drastic change just a couple of years ago, where when I first started, reinstatements, like a payoff it's not going to happen. So I didn't even have it as part of my calculations. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when all of a sudden we were seeing equity notes where they didn't exist at the begining.
Great point.
So I actually had to add that in as an extra column.
When we were started, equity was very rare, right? Everything was underwater. You didn't worry about the fact that happens. So that's a huge one. Reinstatements possible? Yeah.
Yeah, reinstatements, payoffs, and along with payoffs, it's kind of the same bucket, but selling at auction, selling at a foreclosure auction, essentially that's a payoff. So again, that kind of stuff didn't really happen a few years back, and now it's much more common. So it's part of the calculations.
Because you can't guarantee the equities that come in your pocket if it sells at auction, right?
Right.
Smitty, when you're looking at assets now, this happened, I think, more than they do this now. Maybe I'm just not tuned into it. There's a lot of people out there that swear that they have a list available for sale, and they get sent it to you, and they are direct to the seller. When you first get in the space, that sounds really attractive because you don't know any better. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen this. What do you do, and how do you handle those kind of people who come up with these, I'm direct to the seller, I just need a POF or POI or whatever, and I'll get you these assets. How do you handle them?
I ask questions. And I learned, this is one of the things I learned along, very, very early into the career of starting, is to, just dig and ask questions. Hey, who are you buying from? Do you have them in your portfolio? Are you pulling them in your portfolio, or are you brokering it? That's one of the things to know. And because I've had people send me things. And, you know, after they send them to you and they say they have this and this, and you start asking them questions. Okay, well, can you get me some pay history, or can you? So I just kind of go through a series of questions to see, you know, where they're at. I generally, when people reach out to me and say I've got notes and I'm direct to the seller, I kind of shy away from them, just because, for one, I'm still new, and for two, there are certain people that, like you guys and, you know, like Dave's, that send stuff that I know where it's coming from.
Yep.
So for me personally, as a novice, I'm not ready to go out and do that just yet. So I've got a good source of notes that are coming to me from people that I know and trust, or that even if I don't know them, I've heard their names in the industry and I get their information. So that's enough for me right now.
Good.
I just had someone last night say, hey, I'm trying to close on a $300,000 deal. You know,
we got to. Yeah. Yep.
And, you know, I just asked a couple questions. I'm like, hey, I'm not interested. You know, and you're trying to close next week on a $300,000 deal, and you're needing a partner. So, you know, just stuff like that.
Sure, absolutely. And you know what? Those people are out there, right? And I always warn people who are raising capital to be careful doing that, because SEC violations, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those people are out there, and I get it. And what I always say to people who are looking at broker, you know, learn the space and send me one note out of the tape. Don't send me the whole tape. Yeah. Right? Do your homework and say, listen, I pulled this book, add value to it. I'll pay you more for you doing that than your 1%.
Right.
If you give me all the numbers and say, here's BPO, here's the O&E, I ran the numbers, I don't have the money for it. Boom. I'll pay you a couple grand for the deal.
Yeah.
Because you add value to it.
Know what you're selling.
Yes.
Instead of just forwarding on information.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've worked with some good brokers, and I've had others approach me that we could spot pretty easily that they didn't know what they were doing. And I've brokered notes myself.
Yes.
So there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but just do it right. And then and disclose that you're brokering. And if you are, that's fine.
Yep.
As long as you're doing it correctly and you know what you're talking about and things like that, then okay, that's fine.
Right. Yeah, I'm in the process of doing that as well. Once we left the Node Expo last year, I met up a couple of people and, was trying to, broker a couple. So I got some good contacts. Nothing came through, but, I've started it.
Good. Awesome.
So you got your first note, you do your due diligence, you bid what you bid, right? How was it for you to wire money to someone you didn't know? And what did you decide to do with the collateral file? Who'd you send it to? Did you send it yourself?
Yeah, so at each note that I purchased thus far has come from reputable people that have been referred. So I haven't bought anything outside of that. And that kind of goes, like I said, with my novice, and I'm sticking and honing in on the people that I know.
Sure.
So I haven't done that. Like my second note, I was referred to by somebody. Hey, this is a great guy, and it ended up being a great guy. So I haven't gone outside of that realm yet to just purchase from people I don't know. And I think for me still that I want to know who I'm purchasing from. I want to get to know the seller. I want to do some background research on it. Because, if you're in a suit with one property, I mean, it could attach to the other one.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me right now, I'm sticking with that. And if I do run into any new sellers, I'll be doing my research before I deploy any type of capital. I want to know who I'm buying from.
Yeah. Excellent. That's good.
So you got into your first foreclosure. It sucks, right? It's not fun unless you're going for the property, right? How'd you feel? I hate to use the word compassionate, right? Were you like, because compassion sometimes makes you stall, right? Oh, give him another month.
Yeah, where you feel like you want to help them out, you want to keep them going, and well, maybe if I just give them this much more time, or they'll come around, everything will be okay.
Right. Yeah. So the first one, it started last year, and actually it didn't start too good from the beginning because we wanted to see if we could help the person.
Yeah.
So we sent out a packet to get his information, and when the packet came back, it wasn't filled out. It was a bunch of NAs on it. I mean, it was nothing, anything relevant, no information, no financial information. I mean, nothing. So I think we must have lost him.
Yeah, I lost him for now. He'll be back.
Yeah. So at that point, I'm like, they weren't trying to help themselves. So we also, even after that, we tried to give them, links to any type of government funding, gave them a link, said, here, call this place and, do this. And so they weren't trying to help themselves.
Yeah.
So that part really wasn't too hard for me as far as being compassionate. Now what we have been is because it's in the winter months, is that we were saying, okay, we need to, we don't want to do anything around the holidays, New Year's, Christmas thing. Let's just pick this up in the new year and go from there. So, some people have, told me that to, make sure that you understand that people live there.
Right.
People live in these homes and there's families in these homes. But on the flip side, of course, it's a business and you have to, help us, and if you're not providing the correct information, or you're using stall tactics, or you're, not being truthful, then,
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I personally, I believe that most people are good and they want to do what's right. And I've been lied to, and I've had people try to do all kinds of crazy stuff. And they might get away with it for a little while, but in the end, it is what it is. I'm really sorry if that means that you're going to be out of a house and have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But, I, at the same time, the principle is I cannot let you live there for free. Like, that just doesn't work. I'm sorry. That's not realistic.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I'm going through, even with a couple of these notes, is like, people they just ghost you. They don't even call you back or, talk to you. You want to contact them to see what's going on. But you got to have some type of communication.
Yeah, exactly. And that communication is so key. And that makes a huge difference. If we're talking, we can try to work something out. But if you're not returning the calls, you won't back, that makes it difficult. Yeah.
So how my internet just dropped. I'm like, no. So
that's all right. Welcome back.
Yes. So we'll continue the conversation. I'll get the Facebook Live feed later. But so, Smitty, one of the questions I had for you was, how do you start back in the space now? What do you recommend to someone who's brand new, walking in the space, listening, and all that stuff? Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook groups? Is it local meetups? How do you recommend everyone kind of jumping in?
I recommend YouTube. You guys have an excellent channel to get started. There's a lot of people that's out there that just what is a note, starting from there. I've got a YouTube channel, that goes through some basic stuff. So the biggest thing is just starting out, looking at YouTube. I mean, and this stuff is free. There's podcasts that are out there that's free. So there's a lot of free information to go out there and just start getting into it. Like, I have a couple of people that I work with that are new, because I always said that I want somebody to go on this journey with me. So if if I'm learning, you're learning at the same time. So I kind of have like two mentees right now that, we just talk, and, I kind of tell them what I'm going through and they tell me what they're doing. Nothing big, but, just to start. And so just get involved with somebody that's doing it. And also YouTube. Get out there and get the information. I tell people that want to get started, here's some things that you should do. So I'll send them a list of things that you should do. Now, if you do those things, then I know that you're serious about doing it. But if you can't go and look at YouTube, you can't listen to podcasts, you can't do that, then it's not for you.
Yeah.
There's some work you have to put up front, right?
Yeah.
You have to put that work up front to make sure that you are serious, because I'm sure you've seen it. We've been through so many people who want to get in the space, and when it gets started, they're like, it's not for me. It's like, we're spending time and energy to help you. But if you're not serious, and I get that some people may not be serious and they don't know again, it's not their fault. But at the same time, I get it.
This is a real business, and you got to treat it like a real business.
Yeah, exactly.
It needs attention.
And it's a good gauger for me. So anybody that comes to me, because I've had, people come to me and say they want to do it. And I just give them these steps. I have it documented steps, a template that I just send to people and say, here, do this.
Good. Yeah, that's cool. I actually just last week, I finally put up a YouTube channel. So
all right.
There you go. Earnest Investing YouTube channel. Check it out.
Subscribe, get your name right.
Hit the thumbs up button.
So you'll probably see a lot of people put this out there. YouTube, for those people who are not aware, you can't get your own brand name unless you get 100 subscribers. So everyone wants to get their name brand, right? So go to everyone's channel, go to Smitty's, go to Nathan, and just subscribe. And also make sure that what we're learning is that little bell thing notifies you if a new video gets posted. Like when this gets posted, if you get the bell, so make sure you bell all of us and all that good stuff, right? Bell all. That's it. New phrase. So for new investors, it seems like they don't know where to start. And like you just said, just start. And it ain't, sometimes it's they can't get the wheel going and they just sit back and say, it's too much. And sometimes just exploring. And as I'm sure you know, it's not always that other investors are wrong. It just doesn't fit you, right? They may say, listen, Smitty's smart. I just don't like the way he does it or how he presents it. I like the way Nathan does it. Doesn't make you wrong, but the insight is different. The experience is different too. That maybe Nathan has more years, but you have a different experience because of X, Y, and Z, right? Me and Nathan never went through any kind of formal training, right? We just did buy our seat our pants for 11 years now, 12 years now. And guarantee you, part of the stuff that I think that these groups that are out there give is the networking. It bonds you with a group of people. And that's what we didn't have when we got started. But yes, depending on others, leaning on others to know more is key in the space.
Oh, man.
Because you're going to find it, posting questions, answering questions.
Man, and the space, I mean, you guys are just so willing to assist. Yes. That's the thing that I like, is that you throw questions out, or I shot an email to Nathan the other day and I'm asking him some stuff. He sends me the information. So guys like you guys and, other people in the industry are so helpful. And that's one of the things that I like. And that's kind of the reason why I kind of started, what I'm doing is, and I'm not charging people, like the two people that I'm, working with, I'm not charging them. So I just bring them the information as I get it. Now, when I grow to have like a huge group like you guys following, then maybe yes. But right now, it's not about, monetary stuff. It's just about helping,
So you mentioned before some of the things we jump over. When you're managing the note for the first time, what are some things that you're doing now that you maybe didn't realize that isn't out there? Some things when you first got your first note in your pocket, now you have it. Are you doing anything that maybe a new investor says, I didn't know what to do, and you learn, oh, this isn't really talked about a lot?
Yes. One of the things is that your servicer is your servicer, but sometimes you have to service the servicer. So you have to make sure that your servicer is doing what you want them to do, or doing what they're, supposed to do. So that's one of the things. Well, when I bought my first note, I just let things go, and whatever. But now, making sure the servicer, if they're paying the taxes, if it's escrow, if they've contacted the borrower, if the borrower's late past, their period, I'm going into the servicing notes to see if they've called them. If they haven't called them, hey, can you call this guy?
Yeah.
One of my servicers, the taxes was due, so I'm checking on my taxes. Here's a good one. So one of my assets, the borrower got insurance. So they sent the information to the servicer. So the servicer says, oh, they got insurance. So I pull up the policy, and guess what? It's renter's insurance. It's not regular insurance. So that's one of the things. You have to make sure that you go in and just check those things and not leave everything up to the servicer to do. So I had to contact them and say, hey, this is, send it back. This is renter's insurance. It's not homeowner's insurance. So that's one of the things, checking on my taxes, making sure that, and then even with, like some of the CFDs that I have, just going in randomly checking, calling the city, you say, hey, is there any liens on the property? So just things like that. And another one of the things that I picked up is that if I have an asset that I can't really go check on, if somebody I know that's in that city, I'll call them up and say, hey, can you run by there? Or if I'm in that city, I'll run by there just to put some eyes on it.
Yeah.
Just lay eyes.
That's one of the things we stress upon, right? We built our due diligence portal will be coming out, and you'll be able to find agent. But I also think that, we have our Facebook group directory leading on other investors, right? We don't need to always call an agent to find out information about property. If there's a property in backyard or Smitty, I can call them up and say, hey, listen, what do you think the value is? Can you drive by it? This connection network is huge because it allows you to really branch out nationwide to someone who knows exactly what you're looking for and can give you information.
Yeah.
And just do a drive-by, video, pictures, whatever, and they can give you the information that you're looking for without blindly ordering a BPO and hoping and praying that person cares.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I do in the groups that I'm in. I'll let people know, hey, I'm in Kansas City. If you have, any assets in Missouri and then Kansas is neighboring, if it's within a specific amount, radius, I'll go out and drive by there and just snap some photos for you, just to, because I'm here, boots on the ground.
We're hopeful that our portal will actually, right now it just does the agents, right? But eventually as it grows, we're hoping to have the service that anyone who's in that portal can network with each other and say, listen, I have a property this year, this area. Can I reach out to anyone else in this network that's in those cities and reach out to them blindly and say, listen, can you, and the service, I guarantee you email any of us and we have a property in our backyard, we'll drive by, give you values because we will give it back to you. We just expect you to give it back to us. And that's what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Now people buying Jersey and no one's buying Canada, but if they were, we'd help out, right?
Absolutely.
So.
Anytime. Hey, question on that renter's insurance one. Is that on a mortgage or a CFD?
It was on CFD.
Actually, renter's insurance is okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't protect the asset for me.
No, you're right. They may not be eligible to get homeowners insurance because they don't own the home.
Correct. They don't have a deed in their name.
But so with that one in particular, that would be a different story. We can probably talk about that one offline.
Sure.
Yeah, with a CFD, technically you can charge the borrower for the insurance. You can escrow it, right? You can ask them for it, but technically you are the owner of the property. So it's a little different scenario. So they got the insurance they can only get. So cool. Yeah, we'll talk offline about that.
Yeah.
And remind everyone, this will be on YouTube. So I probably feel the glitchy. We're mobile hotspotting right now. Because a snowstorm before we got it is shutting things down. Smitty, we see at conferences and you stand out because of your personality and your presence is awesome. For those new investors who are out there, conferences are scary. They're just overwhelming. They're an outsider walking into a crowd of people. There's 12 people around shaking hands and saying hi to each other. How do you encourage them? Do you encourage them to go to these conferences? And what's your advice to them who is saying, I can't go to them. I don't know anyone.
Yeah, that's a great question, because believe it or not, I'm a little weird. Like, I don't like going to a room and just say, hey, I'm Smitty and blah, 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 blah. I used to didn't be like that, but my goal is my business. So you have to think of it as that, get out of your shell if you're trying to be successful in your business. If you're trying to make relationships with people, if you're looking for OPM, things like that. So I'm the kind of guy that used to be kind of guy walk into a room. I would make friends, but not really put myself out there about a product like, hey, look at notes. So that was one of the things that I had to really change. Even with doing YouTube videos and things like that, I just had to make up my mind that that's what I wanted to do. So it's matter of, it's like buying your first note, jump in and just do it. I encourage people to go to the conferences, to meet people, relationships, and it's some great information that they have.
So for those people, I got a cool one real quick. I got a cool kind of axiom that goes along with that. It goes, decisions determine destiny.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So just decide and do.
Decide to do it. What do you want to do?
Yeah. And when you walk into the room there, it's a lot of people you don't know. And that same mentality you had by walking, except buying a ticket and going down, should be the same mentality you have when you walk into the room. Walk in and shake hands. Get out there, right? We're down at No Expo and it's me, grab this, take a picture, right? Boom. It happens. It's just processing and getting out there, networking. But walk into a conversation, get into a circle, right? We always encourage people, get in there, shake hands, because you can contribute. I promise you, you'll find something to contribute, your experience, your knowledge, whatever it looks like.
Yeah, and that was the whole reason of the green jacket.
Yeah.
Was to stand out.
I wish I could do it quick.
There.
I wish I was better at graphic arts, could throw a picture up there, but I'm not good like that.
But that was the whole idea of the green jacket. When I went to go buy the green jacket, my wife's like, what are you doing? She's ready to make a statement. So I wanted to stand out. And it worked. I made some great contacts, made some great friends, found a couple of people that are interested in, doing business. So
yeah, when I first started going to conferences, same as everybody else, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm shy and, it's weird and scary and all that stuff. And so I would actually go in thinking, okay, so my goal for this conference is to come home with whatever it was, 30 business cards or 50 business cards or whatever. And that was the goal. So it was something that I could track and measure. We talked about goals last time, but something I could track and measure so that I could say, okay, day one, I got 30. Okay, pretty good. So I've got to talk to 20 more people. That's all I got to do. 20 more people.
Yeah.
Just make it happen.
That was my goal too. My goal was walking away with an OPM partner. That was my goal.
Yeah. And I still do that, by the way. Every time I go to a conference, I've got specific goals. And my wife actually, she drops me off at the airport and says, all right, so what's the goal again? And I'll say, the goal is this and this and this. All right.
Yeah.
See you in a few days.
So, Smitty, there's a couple of conferences coming up soon. I'm not sure if you're attending any of them or all of them. Will you be at any new conference? There's a DME coming up shortly. There's a Pitbull, there's a IMN. Will you be attending any of these and working?
Yeah, I'm not going to the DME. I've got another engagement, but I'm possibly we'd be going to the Paper Source album.
Paper Source, okay. Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah.
All good conferences, all for different reasons, really, but all good conferences.
Yeah, we were talking to conferences offline a couple days ago, and that every conference has their niche, what they do well with, right?
Yeah.
In some conferences, a little bit above where people are at when they're beginners, and they'll be overwhelmed. And in some conferences are right up that alley for beginners, right? It really dials in. But not saying you can't go to a higher level one and get content. You will. But it's just a different mentality, different structure of people.
Yeah,
So,
I would say the good thing about even if they are higher than you is because most of the time when you pay for the conference, they give you live recordings. So you can always go back and look at that information, even if it's over your head. Then you can go back and look at it, and because you always have that reference.
Yeah, good point.
what is, from your experience at the conferences, what's been your favorite part of the conference for those who are timid about going?
Meeting the people.
It all comes back to it, right?
I mean, really, it's meeting the people. The content is great. The information is great that's going, but for me, I like the meeting the people that's in the industry. It's such a small industry, but then when you get there, there's people around, you get good information, and I just love meeting the people in the space.
All right, good to know.
Yeah. That's a great conclusion to this story, because it's weird. We say it over and over again, and we hope that people absorb it. But hearing from someone that's only been doing it for a few years now, that resonates, right? Getting involved, asking questions in the Facebook group, attending conferences, and attending your local RIA. You never know what's going to happen there. Again, we have our Facebook directory, which you can find someone who may be local to you that you can just talk shop with, have coffee with. Just, hey, let's talk notes. You never know who's in your backyard. So
yeah.
So I'll let Nathan ask.
Yeah, interesting. So you haven't been in it very long, and you come from a different background, but from what you've learned and observed so far, what's your take on the note industry going forward? Are we looking at more notes coming down the pipe, or are we all dreaming that that's going to happen, or what's your thinking?
Well, I see. I mean, just from what I see, that the pricing is tightening. It's like, I hear you guys talk about how you used to buy stuff 40 cents on the dollar, or 50 cents on the dollar, and I think that is shrinking. Because for one, what I'm seeing is, there's a lot of people that come into the space and they just buy for whatever reason, and not really, and it kind of inflates the price for other folks. So I'm seeing that. I'm still seeing inventory come across, but I guess for me, I would like to get into a better space to where I'm seeing more than just the states that I'm seeing. The Ohios and the Missouris and the Georgias. I'm wanting to try to move into a different space where I'm getting a little better quality notes. So that's my goal for this year, is to try to get either some commercial stuff or certain in different areas.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's good. It's going to be a good year. If you're looking for commercial, I think that's a good. This is going to be a good year for that as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, before I lose, I think all the internet now. I think the snowstorm getting closer and closer. We're gonna let Smitty disconnect from the public. You can catch Smitty. You can go on his website. Smitty, what's your website for everyone who's watching?
Notestarter.com.
Cool.
Also have YouTube channel. If you go and Google Notestarter, it'll pop up on YouTube as well.
Awesome.
Please check him out. Take a look at his content. The guy's been cool. He's been a lot of fun. If you're gonna get to a conference, look for the green jacket. I'm sure he'll start wearing it more. His wife will actually encourage it now.
Green hat.
Yep. And just a reminder, guys, make sure you root for the Niners to lose this weekend. I gotta shave his beard off. Help me out. Other than that, take a look at the video on YouTube. We'll have a stream there as well. I'll be on the Facebook group and everything else. Enjoy, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll go enjoy the snow tomorrow, hopefully.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.